Hello, everybody, and welcome to Portsmouth This Week. I'm your temporary host, Bob Poniatowski, and very happy to welcome to our studios, our microphones and cameras, the Superintendent of Schools for the town of Portsmouth. She is Anna C. Riley Middle. I wanted to make sure I get your middle initial. Gives you a certain savoir-faire. Welcome to the program, Anna. I'm always delighted that you come, and I think you do such a bang-up job for our town and the education sphere. And we're going down new avenues now with, especially, I guess, the priority is this whole needs assessment of buildings. Mm-hmm. So you want to, you'll get old someday. I can't believe that the middle school needs that much attention and that Rogers needs to be torn down. And I started at East Providence High School in the early 60s, and that's going to go. And so buildings, like the rest of us, just get old, don't they? Why don't you take it from the top, Anna?
Sure. So we started the process at the beginning of the summer. We had an educational summit. We had it at the Glen Manor House, and we invited 100 citizens, parents, some students, community members, staff, and we just gathered some information about how folks felt about our buildings, our physical structure, and the future of education in Portsmouth, where we hope to go. So we were really excited. We invited 100 people, and we had just under 90-something folks come.
Wow.
So it was a really great turnout. We were really proud of that.
Very successful.
Yes, so we gathered lots of information from those folks, and then we shared them with, we're working with a vendor called Studio Jade. They do school design. And they also are helping us with our RIDE application, which has 3 stages. So we used all the information we gathered from the community to put together our stage 1. And stage 1 really is kind of the necessity of the building, kind of all your hopes and dreams. And if you could have everything you wanted, what would you put in there? What do we need? And so some of the highlights that came out of the summit we had with everyone at the Glen Manor House were that parents in the community were really interested in bringing 5th grade back down to the elementary level.
Oh.
And that one of the disappointments of the new gym at the high school is that it wasn't attached to the building. And could we find a way to connect the new gym to
the little darlings have to go outside in the rain, huh?
They do. And you know, and really another highlight of that is safety. So that also means our students are out, between the buildings throughout the day, every day. Yeah, so not just weather, but also safety. But it is a concern. We do live in New England, and the weather is unpredictable. So that's a small part of it. Bigger component is really the safety piece
right
of
now, just an interruption or
Sure.
The middle. I worked in the system where we had the middle school concept, and it was supposed to be 6, 7, 8, and then 9 to 12. And I guess here we were 5, and then for some reason we went to 4. Mm-hmm. And that's probably just a space thing.
Yeah, so that predates me, but that seemed to be a lot about closing Elmhurst. When Elmhurst was closed, the census at the time and the way they had to move students around. But you're right, the middle school concept is 6 to 8 and K to 5. And that's really the way the standards are written for teachers and curriculum. And so really, there are a lot of benefits to bringing 5th grade back down to elementary, but currently we don't have the space to do that.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been one of the problems. This is well, as an old timer, this is such a complicated thing. Stage 1, your school committee voted to accept that, and it has to be submitted.
Yep.
And my understanding is that in order to get the financial rewards, you have to go through this.
Correct.
Because the state's going to want to see what you're going to do, what your needs are in the school. So are you comfortable taking us from each school and
Sure.
telling us what the parents
Sure.
said about
Absolutely. So we submitted our stage 1, which was really just that high level. We may need, if we were to do everything we wanted to do, that would be somewhere in the vicinity of 150 to 200 million.
Another couple of cents.
A little
on my
drop in the
tax
bucket.
rate.
But we realized, of course, that's not realistic, and nor was it ever our intention to put forward that kind of project. So what we started to do was take the priorities. So the first priority, really bringing 5th grade down to elementary. What would we have to do, and what would that look like? So if you're familiar with Melville and Hathaway, Hathaway's a little larger than Melville. They have 4 at every grade level, so 4 of every classroom, and Melville has 3. So in order to bring 5th grade down, we would have to add 4 additional classrooms at Hathaway and 3 additional classrooms at Melville. In the meantime, we'll start with Hathaway. I'll focus on Hathaway first. Hathaway also has an entrance that's not exactly designed for safety. So if you're familiar with Hathaway.
I am.
Yes.
I interviewed the principal over there a couple of years ago.
So when you walk into Hathaway, you really walk into an open foyer, not directly into the main office,
That's
which
right.
is kind of the preferred method. So we would, at Hathaway, we would rearrange the entrance to the school and create a main entrance that you would walk into versus just walking in. So really improving the safety of that school. In addition to the 4 classrooms, we would also have to do a little enlargement of the cafeteria and gym space in order to have enough room for those 5th graders.
How many students at Hathaway now? I think it's about
About
280.
450.
Oh,
Yeah, right around 450. So that's around where we are. We're about 380, 390 at Melville.
and if you added the 5th, would that just increase?
Right, it would go up about another 140 students. So that's why we say we would have to do a little bit of space work in the cafeteria and in the gym.
You got plenty of land over there.
We do. It's a beautiful property, and we want to be, while we have the opportunity, we also want to look at parking and the way buses come in and parent drop. Anything we can do throughout the project to make it more efficient, safer, all of those things come into consideration. So we go through this stage 1, stage 2 process, which our stage 2 is what we're working on now. That's due in February. That you're absolutely right. That's what gives us some reimbursement from the state. So currently, we're in the last year of a 5-year capital plan where we're getting about 35% reimbursement from the state. When you do big renovations or additions, any of that, you're eligible for some bonus reimbursements. So whenever you improve the safety of a building, whenever you make the building greener, more energy efficient, there are opportunities to increase how much reimbursement we get. So we're being conservative by estimating that we'll get back at least a 40% reimbursement on these projects. So that's really important when we think about the project as a whole, because if we were to bond, they start paying us our 40% with the first bond payment. So the town never has to shell out that whole 100%. 40% is paid directly by the state, and Portsmouth would pay 60%. So when I mention these safety enhancements, they're twofold. They make our buildings safer, but they also help us to earn some extra credits that we can get a higher reimbursement on. So we've been looking at all of those.
So with Hathaway, you won't have, there's no sort of knocking it down to put a new structure.
No.
You just have to modify what's there.
Correct.
And obviously your architects and your consultants have seen where the jut outs can go, and you're not going to go up high, are you?
I'm trying to remember, at Hathaway we're not going up. But we did have a great, the end of September, beginning of October, we held a workshop at every school. So when we met at Hathaway, we invited parents, staff, and community members who came to actually look at the drawing, the footprint of the school, and put the additions on themselves. Where would you put this?
Oh.
What would you, where do you think would be a good location for these classrooms? How would we make sure everyone still had access to natural light? So it was, a lot of the design actually came from work that parents and staff members did at these community meetings.
Huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We certainly have many talented folks in Portsmouth. So it was exciting to see the things people came up with, but definitely there were some people who thought, let's go up, let's add this, let's think about how we can be creative with the space. So
we've got a tower already. We don't need another one.
No, we did not do that at Hathaway. There's some addition. It looks like, really looking at that front area and maybe some of the back pavement where the schoolyard extends out towards the water.
I had talked to the principal there when the kids were interested in a new playground, and they were making some moves. So it's good there's room to move.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would have been jammed. Are you done with Hathaway? Do you want to go to Melville?
Sure, let's talk about Melville. So Melville, we'd need to add on 3 classrooms, and Melville's been a really interesting discussion because the town has also been working with the Navy to acquire some of that land that's there, that's
Yes.
right alongside the Melville
Yes.
property. So as you know, currently, there's actually a street that runs through the Melville entrance.
Yes, yeah. Been down there often.
Right, so that doesn't exactly bode for safe exit and entrance for buses and all of that. We're doing parent drop-off on the back side of that. So we've been working, Rich Rayner sits on our building committee, as does Gary from the planning office. So he's there with us, helping us look at how can we better align that street and the entrance to the school so that it's both safer for parents and students, but also smooth traffic out a little bit there, because that's a busy
Well, that's a
spot.
main road,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that gives special kind of attention. That water tower, is that our land?
The water, that's actually one of the areas of land that we're trying to get to the bottom of.
Okay.
Is it ours? Is it the Navy's? We don't really know. We're
Okay.
trying to
But
figure that out.
there would be space over there for
Correct.
building.
So we're
yeah.
looking at all of that.
How far back does that land go? I pass by and I see the playground, and then...
All the way down to the park there, down to the water, because you can see our fence runs all the way down to that line.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a good chunk of land.
Yeah, there is a nice piece of
So
property
what do you
there.
want to do with Melville?
So Melville, we want to do the same thing. We'll be adding on 3 classrooms. We'll be moving the main entrance so that it's more accessible from parent drop-off versus on that back side of that public street. And the addition would also include some work to increase the size of the cafeteria and the gym. Again, adding more students means we just want to create a little more space so that we have enough room for kids to eat and play.
So is it mostly classroom space that you're looking at? Instead of like a lot of buildings now have to be upgraded for all of the technology things and all that. You're not looking at that so much. I guess you're there already, right?
So we've done a lot of that work. So we've spent the last 5 years really making sure all of our buildings are warm, safe, and dry. You know, we have new boilers, lots of new roofs in different places, windows at
Yeah, we
Hathaway.
take good care.
We
We do.
have. We've done a really, really good job of caring for our buildings. So, and we've done a good job with technology. We've really made sure that we've done those upgrades. What we haven't always been able to do is have buildings who can support it. The electricity load,
Yes,
for example, is an
yes,
issue.
yes.
Definitely at both elementaries, that'll be something else. That'll be part of the project. We'll be increasing the electricity load.
We need more power,
We
Anna. We
do.
need more power.
Also updating bathrooms and that sort of thing. We're not just,
Well,
gonna
you're
put
going to
some
pick
new
up some
rooms.
more students,
Of course.
and so there's going to be more traffic.
absolutely.
Are you done with Melville? You want to go
Yes.
to the middle school?
Sure. So
My favorite school, that's what brought me here.
it's a very large middle school. And I guess that was a good thing because we had to move quite a few students there over the last several years. We've looked at our 10-year projection for student growth, and it looks to be pretty flat from now for the next 10 years. And so we know what number of students we have at the middle school. We'll have about 160 students in each grade, 6, 7, 8, by the time we get to the project. One of the big worries of the middle school is when it was designed, and you probably remember this, Bob, but all the interior classrooms don't have any natural light.
I never thought of that. I was looking at all those collapsible walls and all that large group instruction. I said, wow, but I forgot about light.
So we know that's really important to students' overall health and well-being,
Sure.
and we really want to open that up. So because of the nice large size of the middle school, if we go down to just 6th, 7th, and 8th, we are able to reorganize the classrooms to be able to provide all students with classrooms that will have natural light. We may have a couple of science labs or maybe some small group instruction rooms that will be in that center where they might not have natural light. However, all the classrooms will have access to natural light. We'd also like to do some improvements there. We've already done new boilers and a new electrical upgrade. However, the middle school does need new windows, some HVAC work, and a new roof is definitely on the line for the middle school. So that's the bulk of the work at the middle school. It's really more of improving some of those features that will be the renovation costs.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how much is necessary to well, you mentioned the safety thing and the transportation and the pickup, and of course the space for classrooms. Will Are the designs that are being forwarded sort of matched what's there? I mean, yeah.
It stayed in the same
it-
footprint
it's
for
not-
the middle
It's not
school.
a corrugated, corrugated building attached at the end.
No. So, and we won't need to do any addition work to the middle school. It'll really be more just kind of renovation, clean up the bathrooms. Again, all of our bathrooms in all the buildings need some rework, except for some of the high school bathrooms that have already been done, but all of the other ones need
You
some
mentioned
upgrading.
something, and I was going to ask it. I looked at some of the numbers in the elementary school, having worked in the system, some of the numbers in the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. It looks like you're going to have a couple of increasing years, and then, as you said, it flattens, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because people aren't working here or are having children, or?
I think that the birth rate there was a decline at some point, and then it stayed pretty steady. So,
Yeah.
it looks pretty consistent for the next 10 years, but definitely there must have been a point in time where there was just a decline in the birth rate. A lot of that always coincides with the downturn in the economy, so I think that's part of our...
And as a planner and as administrator, you have to be sensitive to when you're building, when you're modifying, that you're not overdoing it or underdoing it, as a
Correct.
certain community near the area built a school and then found that there wasn't enough room in it for what they had. So you have to be very sensitive to when you make all these modifications on Monday morning, you don't say, we need another room.
Right.
Or we got too much room.
Correct. So it's always trying to find that good middle ground. We don't want to make it too tight, but we don't want to overbuild anything.
It's hard to plan for that because with people moving in and people moving out and all that, it's just an imponderable. I remember, are we done with the middle school? What about the high school?
So the high school, I mentioned one of the priorities was really connecting the new gym. So I don't know how familiar you are with the high school, but the original part of the high school used to be an old elementary school.
Oh, I've been here long enough to remember all the add-ons.
Yes, so that wing, the E-wing, needs a lot of work. So part of the design is to actually eliminate the E-wing and continue where the current library is, use that area to connect to the new gym and create a new library on the other side of the building and use that as a connecting space to really improve the flow at the middle school. So we would be replacing some classrooms over on the back side. I'm trying to think what wing they call that, by the cafeteria. So we have some older classrooms there that we would be replacing and adding some a second floor there that would be some. So that's
You
where the
sleep
second
well
floor
at
is.
night. Yeah, it's the
Yes.
E-wing, huh?
So the E-wing will go, and we'll replace that with some new classrooms.
And would the connector be sort of an enclosed area
Yes.
that just had to go across the road?
Correct.
So that's gonna
Correct.
have to be
So there'll be,
redesigned.
it'll be kind of a hallway and some classroom space there. So
Oh.
the design is, again, we had a community meeting and asked folks to design and dream, and they certainly did a lot of that. And now we actually haven't seen the final design. So I've seen a draft, that's why I say I know it connects, and there's some new classrooms there, and the library's been moved to the backside. But the final design I'll see on Monday. We have our building committee meeting with Studio Jade, and they'll be bringing those. And again, not the final design, because throughout the month of November, we're going to take those designs and have a meeting at each school again to invite the community in and get feedback on
You
what we
think
came
you'll
up with.
satisfy everybody?
Never.
And if you do, write a book, Anna.
Never. No, but we do want to make sure that we get as much input
Sure.
from the community in advance
Good
of
model.
when we decide, here it is, this is our final design, we'll have to submit it to RIDE in February.
Right.
And so when we do that, we want to make sure that prior to that, we've received a lot of feedback, we've fixed anything that's glaring, that, folks say, gee, that's not going to work, or we're really not happy with that. The folks who live and work in the buildings are so important to this process because they live in them every day. So we need to hear from them, and we need to look at the designs and make sure that they will work for the next 30, 40, 50 years, because certainly I don't imagine that they'll be touched again until such a time.
Yeah.
So-
Are those mandates to involve the community and get such input, is that driven from the state, or is that your own?
The state wants you to get input, but I have been here in Portsmouth while you went through the police station process.
Right, okay.
And one of the things I know helped build support for that was really involving the community. So we've tried to amplify that process as much as possible to get folks in and to get their opinions. I mean, we need the voters eventually to approve a bond. And people need to know what they're approving, and we want them to be in support of it, especially our parents.
Yeah, well, I agree. I've been in 2 different school systems where this sort of process wasn't there. And what happens is that, oh, I don't want to go down that road, but the building opens and the music department or the guidance department is, closeted. And so nobody asked the guidance people what kind of space they need, and nobody asked the music people. So it's good that you get everybody involved, so that when it's open, and you won't please everybody, but at least it won't be said that you did your own thing, but you involved everybody. So other than the transportation at the high school, anything else needed there?
So we also have been working, like I mentioned, Rich Rayner's on our building committee, and as we're looking at the bond capacity for the town of Portsmouth, because that's important, we of course can't go beyond what the town could afford. I've been talking a lot with Rich about there are some town needs that need to happen. There's a survey.
Some what, please?
Town needs.
Oh,
capital needs.
Right.
So how can we really partner to help support each other in a process that improves Portsmouth, not just Portsmouth schools, but the community as a whole, so that we can really appeal to the entire community when we bring a bond forward in November of 2020. So we have all this work going on at the schools, but we certainly know that there are members of the community that no longer feel that connection.
Like the Senior Citizen Center, for example?
Correct. So I know that Rich is working on his end to partner with us in bringing some recommendations forward. But we're also building some community spaces into our building. So you mentioned the high school. When we put that connector on, we're going to also add some community space near the new gym. So when folks need a meeting space, or we've been talking to the emergency management folks. So currently we're not a shelter, but is there a way that we could be an in-between before folks had to go to the shelter at Gaudet? What can we do to improve our facility that would also benefit the town and the community as a whole, not just our schools?
It's good that you think that way. As a member of a different generation, I'm happy that the schools are thriving, but Recreation Department, I'm glad to see that survey went out.
Yes.
And they're taking a look at that, and I'm a member of the board at the Senior Center, and I guess there's some chatter and talk with that, and that's healthy, because children graduate and they become old.
We all get there.
Yeah.
But
anything else at the high school that you want to talk?
I don't think so. I mean, we have done some of the other parts. We just did a major auditorium renovation thanks to the Kate Garner
Oh, yeah.
group.
I talked to Jackie Sherman, and
It's really beautiful. If you haven't seen it yet, you will be amazed. It's really brand new seats, light, sound systems, just incredible. The amount of, they raised over $400,000 and did all of that
was
work,
quite a
in the
project.
name. Yes, and it's a beautiful area now. So we definitely are fortunate, and we don't have to redo the entire high school. We're not in a place where we need to build any new building.
Portsmouth has kept up with its building updates.
Yes.
I've been here 45 years, and unlike other communities that I've been in, that building, the high school, has been added on and restructured and everything, and it's kept up.
Absolutely. Our maintenance folks and our custodians really take a lot of pride in the facilities. So
it's clear.
even when outside folks, so RIDE has to come in and do some inspections after some projects. So we just did a big window project and roof project at Hathaway this summer, and when they came back to inspect it, they were so impressed by the building, by its age, but how well it's been maintained and kept up.
Pay me now or pay me later. I was in a school where people waited and waited on maintenance costs, and all of a sudden they need a $250,000 roof. They go into shock. And we have any other buildings? I noticed that your digs have been nicely shuttered and everything.
So our building was in need of quite a bit of work. It needed
Yes.
a new roof. The
Yeah.
shingles were literally falling off during
Yeah.
storms. We were picking them up and kind of jamming them back into place. So last year, or within the last 2 years, we've had the roof replaced and the shingles replaced. So that's ready to go for another
So,
30
and
to 50
Prudence
years.
Island is history now, so you don't have to worry
Correct.
about that.
We don't own that facility
And there's
anymore.
there's no other property.
Nope.
The, was it, Cogshell School is in limbo and.
And that belongs to the town. I'll give that to Rich
Yeah,
Rayner to worry
yeah,
about.
yeah. Well, I noticed that other communities in the area have been talking to us about regionalization and collaboration and so forth and so on. Do you have a one-sentence comment before we
Sure.
run out of time?
Absolutely. So on October 23rd, the 3 school committees, Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth, met at Portsmouth Middle School, really to get some solid answers, I think, around what we were discussing, because the word collaboration was thrown around a lot, but I think some people were still holding out hope that that also meant regionalization. So I think what really, the important thing that came out of that meeting on October 23rd is that, like Middletown, Portsmouth is not interested in regionalization. We're always open to working together and collaborating for the betterment of students.
Yes.
How can we,
Yes.
share what our strengths are with the other communities so that all students benefit. That we're always open to. But I think the important thing that came out of that meeting was that Newport needed to know that we were not interested in regionalization. That way they can move forward with their stage 2 the same way that we are.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that all the horses are marching down the same road, but going in different directions. So is there anything else you want to cover on the matter of building or support? I know this is a reach out for you, and
Yes,
you
I really
wanna
want folks to
invite
come.
people to
Yes.
come.
So throughout the month of November, we have a meeting scheduled at every school. The dates are on our website. It's open to anyone. You don't have to be a Hathaway parent to come to Hathaway. You can be a former Hathaway graduate.
How
or
about a
maybe
taxpayer?
A taxpayer. Anyone is welcome. If you have a newborn baby and someday you'd like them to go to Hathaway, you should come and be a part of that.
You have vision.
That's right. So we'll have a community meeting at every one of the schools throughout the month of November. We'll have some preliminary designs. This is the time to have some impact and some feedback on any changes you might want to see or things you think we missed, because certainly we're not experts in building and design. We're kind of letting the experts guide us through this conversation.
It's good that you pool the resources of the citizens and the people in town.
Absolutely.
We're almost out of time. Are any kids involved?
We did have some kids come to the middle school one and to the high school one. The kids did not come to Hathaway and Melville,
Yeah.
but those kids probably would be, the project would start in 2023. They're probably very young. They're probably not interested
I
yet.
agree with you. Well, I see our time is up, and I want to thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate you reaching out to the public through our system
Absolutely.
here. And for all the members of the staff here at Portsmouth this week, I welcome you to the next session. See you later.